Some actors from the past were so iconic, it feels like their presence never really left. And sometimes when you watch a modern actor on screen, something about them just feels familiar. It might be their voice, the way they carry themselves, or the kind of roles they take on. It makes you wonder, are we seeing a new generation of stars who mirror the legends of old Hollywood? In this video, we're drawing the lines between classic and modern, and you might be surprised at how closely they match. Cary Grant and George Clooney, the art of effortless charm. Some stars don't just act, they glide through scenes like they were born in front of a camera. Cary Grant and George Clooney, decades apart, mastered the rare art of appearing completely effortless. Say their names, and you don't just think of roles, you think of a certain presence, a way of being. These two aren't just actors, they are personas, carefully crafted and impossibly magnetic. Cary Grant, with his smooth transatlantic accent and impeccable suits, was the kind of leading man who could be both the romantic and the comic relief, often in the same scene. He brought a sense of class and mischief to the screen that never felt rehearsed. It's easy to forget how much precision went into making it look that easy. Whether he was dodging crop dusters or navigating screwball comedies, Grant gave the impression that he was always in control, even when his characters weren't. Fast forward a few generations, and we see a very similar energy in George Clooney. Like Grant, Clooney has made a career out of being charming without trying too hard. He's just as comfortable playing a smooth con man as he is a conflicted astronaut or a cynical fixer. And while he's taken on serious, politically charged projects, there's always a twinkle of old-school charisma in the mix, like he's in on a joke the rest of us haven't caught yet. There's also something to be said about how both men have aged in the public eye. Grant famously embraced his silver hair and shifted into more mature roles with grace, and Clooney seems to be following the same path, aging like fine wine, both on screen and off. Neither ever leaned on theatrics or extremes to hold attention. Instead, they made charisma look easy, even when it wasn't. Their careers may have been built in very different times, but the blueprint is unmistakably similar. Cary Grant walked so George Clooney could glide. Two men, two eras, one kind of star. The kind who makes you believe that style, wit, and presence are sometimes more powerful than anything in the script. Audrey Hepburn and Hathaway, elegance with a spark. One name belongs to a silver screen legend, the other to a modern star who has carved her own path, yet somehow feels like a familiar reflection. What connects these two isn't just elegance, but the rare ability to carry both lightness and depth, charm and steel, often within the same role. Audrey Hepburn wasn't the typical Hollywood starlet of her time. She didn't rely on glamour in the conventional sense. Her beauty was in her poise, her grace, and that unmistakable mix of vulnerability and strength. She brought something different to every role, whether it was the wide-eyed dreamer in Roman Holiday or the complex, guarded Holly Golightly in Breakfast at Tiffany's. There was always more going on beneath the surface, a quiet intelligence, a sense of control within the chaos. She didn't shout to be noticed. She didn't have to, and Hathaway shares that same quiet force. Early in her career, she was often cast as the innocent or the idealist, but like Hepburn, she never let herself be boxed in. Over time, she's proven herself remarkably versatile, from musicals and fantasy epics to gritty dramas and modern comedies. Like Hepburn, she plays both the heart and the wit in her roles and brings a sincerity that never feels forced. Even when a scene is heavy, she carries it with an emotional clarity that feels effortless. There's also an undeniable presence that both actresses bring to the screen, a kind of classic energy, even in modern settings. You could easily imagine Anne Hathaway in black and white, wearing pearls and delivering lines in a 1950s drawing room, just as you could see Hepburn navigating a 21st century storyline with that same sparkle in her eye. Both have also used their public platforms thoughtfully, never chasing controversy, but always standing for something. They carry themselves with a grounded sense of purpose that echoes beyond their roles. It's a kind of modern elegance rooted in substance, not just style. Audrey Hepburn and Anne Hathaway aren't carbon copies. But in the world of cinema, where certain qualities transcend time, they feel like pages from a same story, written in different chapters, but with the same ink. James Dean and Timothée Chalamet, the face of a generation. Different centuries, same haunting intensity. They didn't just play roles, they captured the restless, aching uncertainty of youth. Not polished heroes or clean-cut heartthrobs, but raw, sensitive outsiders who didn't quite fit the world around them. Both actors became symbols of their generation, not because they tried to, but because they couldn't help it. James Dean was only in 3 major films, but that was enough to make him a myth. In Rebel Without a Cause, East of Eden, and Giant, he portrayed young men who felt everything a little too deeply, who fought against expectations, who cracked under the pressure of being misunderstood. Dean's performances weren't clean or safe. They were messy, charged with emotion, and often uncomfortable to watch, in the best way. He wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, even fragile, and that vulnerability is what made him unforgettable. Timothée Chalamet carries that same restless energy. From Call Me By Your Name to Beautiful Boy and Dune, his characters often seem like they're searching for something they can't quite name. He plays discomfort incredibly well, that feeling of being overwhelmed by the world, but still moving through it with a kind of poetic defiance. His physicality, his expressions, even the way he uses silence, it all feels deeply intentional, but never forced. Like Dean, he acts with his whole body and holds nothing back. They also share a look that defies typical Hollywood standards. Slight, sharp-featured, a little unpredictable. They don't dominate scenes with bravado. They pull you in by being fully there. And that presence, that quiet emotional gravity, has made them both cultural touchstones far beyond just movies. They're fashion icons, indie darlings, meme material, and critical darlings all at once. Somehow both distant and relatable. What makes this pairing so striking is not just talent, but timing. Both appeared when audiences were hungry for something different, someone who didn't look or act like everyone else. And both gave us that. Not as polished stars, but as reflections of youth in all its confusion, beauty, and pain. James Dean lit the match. Timothée Chalamet is keeping the flame alive. Marilyn Monroe and Margot Robbie, more than a blonde bombshell. 2 names that, at first glance, might seem to be linked by the obvious: beauty, fame, and blonde hair. But if that's all you see, you're missing the whole picture. Because both actresses built careers by pushing past the image, challenging the typecast, and proving they were far more than the roles the world expected them to play. Marilyn Monroe became the face of a generation, the playful voice, the stunning looks, the iconic poses. But beneath all that was a sharp, emotionally complex performer who constantly fought to be taken seriously. Her comedic timing in films like Some Like It Hot was brilliant, but she also brought real emotional weight to roles in Bus Stop and The Misfits. What people often forget is how hard she worked to escape being just a symbol. Marilyn wasn't just playing characters, she was navigating the limits of how women were allowed to be seen on screen. Margot Robbie has walked into that same territory, but with a modern edge and a lot more control. Her breakout in The Wolf of Wall Street painted her as the ultimate it girl, but instead of staying there, she flipped the script. With roles in I, Tanya, Bombshell, and Barbie, she's made a career of playing characters who seem one way on the surface, but reveal something deeper, sharper, and far more complicated. Like Monroe, Robbie understands how to use her appearance as a starting point, not the whole story. She leans into it when it serves the character, but she never lets it define the performance. Instead, she invites the audience to question their assumptions. That takes subtlety, confidence, and a sense of play that both actresses mastered in different ways. Off-screen, too, there's a connection. While Monroe had to fight studios for better roles and more control, often without much support, Robbie is part of a generation that's doing it on her own terms. She produces her own projects, seeks out scripts with depth, and takes creative risks that echo what Monroe wanted, but rarely got the chance to do. So yes, Marilyn and Margot may both be remembered for their image. But the legacy they're really shaping is about what lies beneath. Clever, layered, and always one step ahead of how the world sees them. Humphrey Bogart and Oscar Isaac, the cool you can't fake. Both carry a kind of cool that doesn't ask for attention, it just has it. You can't exactly explain it, but you know it when you see it. It's in the way they speak, the way they hold a stare, the way they let silence linger longer than most actors dare. This is not the loud, flashy kind of charisma. It's the slow burn, the quiet confidence of someone who knows who they are, even when their characters don't. Bogart defined a certain kind of masculinity in old Hollywood, hard-edged, skeptical, but somehow still noble. He didn't play perfect men. His characters were often cynical, world-weary, sometimes even morally questionable. But you rooted for them anyway. Whether it was Casablanca, The Maltese Falcon, or In a Lonely Place, Bogart didn't win people over with big speeches. He did it with restraint, with a flick of a cigarette, a look across a crowded room, or a single line delivered just right. Oscar Isaac operates with that same energy. He doesn't need to dominate a scene, he anchors it. In films like Inside Llewyn Davis, Ex Machina, and A Most Violent Year, he plays complicated men, often caught in quiet turmoil. You don't always understand them, and that's the point. Like Bogart, Isaac leaves space for mystery. You feel like there's more going on beneath the surface, thoughts his characters aren't ready to say out loud, or maybe never will. Their performances also share a deliberate stillness. They don't overact or lean too hard into emotion. Instead, they let the camera come to them. That takes confidence, the kind that only a few actors can pull off without looking like they're holding back. It creates tension, intimacy, and unpredictability. You lean in because they don't push out. Another subtle parallel is in the way both actors pick their roles. Bogart, even in his era, gravitated toward flawed heroes and stories with moral gray areas. Isaac does the same. Whether he's leading a sci-fi blockbuster or an indie drama, he chooses characters with layers, the kind you can't fully figure out in one watch. Humphrey Bogart and Oscar Isaac don't shout to be heard. They don't chase likability. But they leave an impact, strong, understated, and undeniably cool. Elizabeth Taylor and Zendaya, icons in real time. Two women whose rise to fame wasn't just about talent, but timing, presence, and the ability to grow up on camera without ever losing control of the story. They became icons while still figuring themselves out, and the world watched every step. What's remarkable is how both turned the spotlight into a tool, not a trap. Elizabeth Taylor was in the public eye before she even had the chance to define herself. From her early roles as a child star to her breakthrough in A Place in the Sun, she was seen as Hollywood royalty almost overnight. But it wasn't just because of her looks or the headlines, it was her intensity. Even when she was young, Taylor carried a sense of gravity. Her performances were emotional without being theatrical, grounded yet captivating. She wasn't trying to charm the audience, she was the moment, and she knew it. Zendaya has followed a surprisingly similar path. She began in teen television, became a fashion staple, and then quietly and confidently transformed into one of the most compelling actresses of her generation. Like Taylor, she moved from the light roles into deeper, riskier territory. In Euphoria, she brings an emotional rawness that feels lived in and fearless. She doesn't try to clean things up or make her characters more digestible. She shows them as they are, messy and complex. What ties them together isn't just talent, but the way they've carried fame. Taylor lived her entire life under public scrutiny, yet she stayed one step ahead, using her celebrity to shape her career rather than letting it control her. Zendaya, in a completely different era, seems to be doing the same. She's deliberate, strategic, and rarely seen off balance. In a world where stars are constantly pushed to perform even when they're not acting, that kind of control is a skill of its own. Both women also became fashion symbols, not just for what they wore, but how they wore it. Red carpets weren't just events, they were statements. Visual proof that these weren't just actresses, they were cultural forces. Elizabeth Taylor and Zendaya didn't wait for permission to grow up, take risks, or redefine what it means to be a star. They did it in front of everyone, and somehow made it look like it was all part of the plan. Marlon Brando and Tom Hardy, the unpredictable power. Neither fits neatly into a box, and that's exactly why they're unforgettable. Both have a kind of intensity that feels just a little unstable, like something could explode at any moment. And when you watch them, you're never quite sure what they're going to do next, only that you can't look away. Brando didn't just act, he changed acting. In the early days of Hollywood, performances were often theatrical and polished. Then came Brando, tearing through the screen in a streetcar named Desire, and later in On the Waterfront. He brought something new, something raw, physical, emotional. He didn't always hit his marks or deliver lines the same way twice. But when he was on, there was no one like him. He mumbled, he shouted, he paused in strange places. He made every scene feel alive, not performed but happening. Tom Hardy carries that same unpredictable energy. Whether he's playing a lone survivalist in Mad Max, Fury Road, a mumbling criminal in Legend, or wearing a mask for most of The Dark Knight Rises, he commits to his roles with total physicality. Hardy never seems concerned with how he looks on camera. He'll disappear into a role, twist his voice into something strange, or play a scene entirely through body language. Like Brando, he makes bold choices that could fall apart in someone else's hands, but somehow, with him, they work. They also share a fascination with characters who are a little broken, often isolated, and always intense. Brando's most iconic roles were deeply flawed men struggling with their past, their pride, or their place in the world. Hardy gravitates toward the same territory, Men with demons, often quiet, sometimes dangerous, always fascinating. And while both actors have starred in massive films, there's always the sense that they're not chasing stardom. They're chasing something else, something deeper in the role. That's what makes them magnetic. You don't just watch them, you study them. You try to figure them out, even when they give you very little to work with. And that mystery is part of the power. Marlon Brando redefined what an actor could be. Tom Hardy reminds us that it's still possible to surprise an audience, not with noise or special effects, but with presence, instinct, and total commitment. Grace Kelly and Saoirse Ronan, the quiet command, may not shout for attention, but they never leave a scene unnoticed. Their strength lies in stillness, their power in precision. Neither relies on volume or spectacle. Instead, they draw you in with the kind of performances that whisper instead of roar. And somehow, that whisper echoes even louder. Grace Kelly's screen career was brief, but unforgettable. In just a handful of films, Rear Window, To Catch a Thief, High Society, she built an image of elegance and mystery. She had poise, yes, but also a quiet daring. Underneath the polished surface was a woman who could turn cold detachment into intrigue, or a gentle smile into a power move. Her characters were often calm, but never passive. You couldn't rattle her. You couldn't predict her. You just watched, wondering what she was really thinking. Saoirse Ronan brings that same layered subtlety to every performance. From Brooklyn to Lady Bird to Little Women, she plays characters who are rarely loud but always full of life, conflicted, intelligent, and constantly evolving. Ronan's strength lies in her restraint. She doesn't overstate. She doesn't perform to be seen. Instead, she listens. She reacts. She lets the audience do some of the work, and that's part of what makes her performances feel real. Both actresses have a timeless quality. You could place Grace Kelly in a modern film or Saoirse Ronan in a Hitchcock classic, and neither would seem out of place. Their beauty is quiet, their presence undeniable, and they both seem to operate on their own wavelength, slightly removed from the noise of Hollywood, focused instead on the work, on the characters, on the emotion beneath the surface. There's also a shared intelligence in how they choose roles. Grace Kelly's transition from Hollywood to royalty is the stuff of legend, but her performances before that reveal a woman who knew exactly what kind of stories she wanted to tell. Saoirse Ronan, still early in her career, shows the same sense of direction. She gravitates toward projects with soul, stories about identity, memory, longing, and choice. Grace Kelly and Saoirse Ronan don't demand the spotlight. They simply move into it, with grace, precision, and a quiet force that stays with you long after the credits roll. Paul Newman and Ryan Gosling, the cool beneath the surface. Two actors who've mastered the art of doing more by showing less. They don't rely on loud performances, flashy dialogue, or over-the-top emotion. Their strength is in understatement. They play men who feel deeply, but don't always say it. You see it in the eyes, in the pauses, in what's not being said. It's that quiet intensity, the kind that pulls you in without asking. Newman was a master of contradictions. He had movie star looks, sure, but he played outlaws, anti-heroes, loners. Whether in Cool Hand Luke, the Hustler, or Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, there was always a sense that his characters were carrying something heavy under the charm. He could deliver a line with a grin, but you knew there was pain behind it. He wasn't trying to be likable, he was being honest. And somehow, that made you like him even more. Ryan Gosling has that same duality. One moment he's silent and unreadable, the next, he lets just enough emotion slip through to break your heart. From Drive to Blue Valentine, The Place Beyond the Pines to Barbie, Gosling plays characters who rarely explain themselves. But he doesn't need to. Like Newman, he's learned how to hold a scene, how to let silence speak louder than words. He knows when to lean back and when to lean in, and that timing is everything. There's also something to be said about the way both actors balance seriousness with humor. Newman had that sly, dry wit that made him a joy to watch, even in darker roles. Gosling, especially in recent years, has shown the same instinct. He can be heartbreaking one minute and hilarious the next, often within the same scene. And the best part? He never seems to be trying too hard. Like Newman, he makes it all look easy. Neither actor is loud about their fame. Both seem slightly outside the Hollywood machine, respected, admired, but never desperate for attention. They've built careers slowly, thoughtfully, choosing roles that challenge them instead of chase trends. Paul Newman and Ryan Gosling don't play characters who wear their hearts on their sleeves. They play the ones who hide it well, until the moment they don't. And that moment, that's where the magic is. Bette Davis and Cate Blanchett, commanding every frame. Two actresses who don't just play characters, they take over the screen. When they appear, everything else fades. It's not just about presence, it's about precision, control, and a fearless commitment to complexity. They don't chase likability, they chase truth. And in doing so, they make some of the boldest choices in modern and classic film. Bette Davis was a force in every sense of the word. She wasn't interested in being soft or easy to watch. She brought sharpness, edge, and unpredictability to her roles, whether as the ambitious Margot Channing in All About Eve, the hauntingly fragile Baby Jane, or countless other layered women navigating power, insecurity, and defiance. Davis could turn a single glance into a threat, a sigh into a monologue. Her voice, her eyes, her delivery, all of it demanded attention. Not because she asked for it, but because she earned it. Cate Blanchett channels that same energy, but in a modern, more refined package. Her performances are often icy on the surface, but boiling underneath. In Blue Jasmine, Carol, Tia with a Guitar, and many others, she plays women in control, or trying desperately to stay that way. Like Davis, she doesn't soften the edges. She leans into the flaws, the contradictions, the power struggles. She makes bold choices, but always with clarity and purpose. What ties them together is their commitment to roles that challenge expectations. Neither settles. Neither plays it safe. And both have carved out careers that respect the intelligence of the audience. They assume you're paying attention, and if you're not, you'll miss something. There's also an elegance in how they move through their careers. Not in the way they dress or pose on red carpets, though they do that well, but in the way they carry authority. Bette Davis fought for roles that mattered and for the right to be seen as more than just a star. Blanchett, in a different era, continues that fight through the stories she chooses and the artists she supports. In every generation, there are actors who don't follow the rules, they rewrite them. Bette Davis did it first. Cate Blanchett is doing it now. Two women, decades apart, both standing at the center of every scene, not just performing, but commanding. Legends don't just fade, sometimes they echo forward. These pairings aren't about imitation, but about connection. Energy, presence, choices, passed down in new forms for new audiences. Now it's your turn. Which match felt the most accurate to you and why? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read and reply to every single one because your perspective is part of the conversation. If you enjoyed this journey through Hollywood past and present, hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories that connect the dots across time. There's more to come.